So, you guys are back. Thanks for that, man. Thanks for stopping by. And thanks for stopping by for round three, where you guys know where you get that feeling where you're playing a chess tournament and you're scoring really, really well. That's how your boy's feeling right now. That's how your boy's feeling because I'm 1.5 out of 2, so I got one win and one draw. And feeling good about it, feeling good about it, and hopefully gonna get into a really good game today. So if you guys didn't watch round one and two, round one I was suffering in a tough position against a friend of mine, and I ended up winning that game through tactical play. And the second round was just a boring reverse Grinfell draw, but that's okay because not too bothered about that. Half a point is still very good. So going into round three, very optimistic, and yeah, never played against this opponent before. Where did my game go? There we go. Okay. So, getting into the third game, and I am playing against an opponent I've never played against. She's a girl called Marioni, and she's a Sicilian player, so she plays e4. I continue with my normal c5, and we get into the Sicilian here. D4 is very standard, guys. Takes, knight takes d4. This is the main line. And I like to go for g6 here. Now, there are many options. I like to go for g6. And this is what I've played for this tournament. Knight c3 is the main line. I continue with the main line. And I'll just get to this point here, where this isn't theory. If you were going to play with theory, the best move would be to play bishop to e3 and play with continue from there. Black does manage to equalize in these positions generally, and it's going to be a double-edged game. Knight f3 is a bit of an imprecision in my mind though, because if you move a piece forwards and have to move it back in the opening, that's probably not a good sign. And the guy used to follow that principle. Never move the same piece twice in the opening, especially if you're below 1500. So this is definitely not the way to go forwards. You always want to go forwards in chess, which is why bishop b3 is such a good move. Bishop b3 develops the bishop, protects the knight on d4, and you're fine. So knight f3 is a bit of an imprecision, and I don't really think this is attributed to the rating, because if you take a look, she is rated 1188, but something I do need to explain, guys, is that in my city, there really wasn't much tournaments going on for a good 4-year period. And then only now did tournaments like start appearing. So since nobody was playing, everybody's rating was stagnated, and that's why many players here in my region have a very low rating, because there just weren't any tournaments because of political chess reasons. But that's what it was. And so yeah, I don't think she's an 1188. She played a very good game, and actually I threw this game on the chess.com analysis, and she scored 81% precision, and I scored a whopping 95.8% precision. Mind you also that this was analyzed, the precision was analyzed with the chess.com stockfish, just the standard stockfish, and I've analyzed this game with a much stronger engine, and some of the moves that I played were suggested on the stronger engine, but not on the stockfish, so uh, it may vary, that precision rating. Anyways, knight f3, I just developed my piece, knight f6, and bishop c4 is a strange one. Now, what can I say about this? I mean, knight f3 was really strange, and bishop c4, okay, I guess that kind of makes sense, but here I really didn't know what to play. I knew I could castle. I wanted to play for the center as well, but it looks like the d5 square is really well protected. So the plan I came up here with is, I noticed that with this bishop c4 move, if she hadn't moved this knight back to f3, this would be the exact line which you could play, which is a main line, and then the continuation goes with queen a5. And I didn't see any difference between this position with the knight on f3 and the knight on d4. So I think this was really good, and if not an improvement for me, because I still am threatening some stuff. I'm still forcing her to short castle. I've still got the idea of playing queen d4 in these positions, and it's yeah, it looks very good for me, so I'm happy with this position. So queen a5 is what I played, and after castles, we reached somewhat a comfortable position here for me. Um, Now she should really develop, which she does, so good for her. And I just continue with my normal plans as I would in this opening. So in these lines, generally black will play with d6 and just play for a slow build up in the center. So this is what's happening. I play d6, h3, stopping me from playing bishop to g4, as she should. And so now I have two options. I could play my bishop out. I can go for a queenside push, which um what to say about this? I mean, okay, so in these positions, what I'm familiar with is I'm familiar with playing knight takes d4 in some of these lines, and then playing bishop d7, bishop c6, and stuff like this. But since the knight is on f3, I feel it's better to just go for a queenside attack, which is why I play a6. And this is like noticing those really subtle things in the chess game where like one knight moving back could make this plan more efficient than playing in the center, for example. That's one case that you could make. And it's something that I really noticed when I study very strong player games. Like, for example, if I'm studying Gligoric's games from the past, then I can see in his comments that sometimes he makes these little distinctions. And whenever the opponent goes out of book and plays something that's a bit interesting or dubious, he will really analyze deeply the position and see what he can do better and what differences, small differences that makes in the position. And this would be something that I'm trying to incorporate really well in my chess, which is this notion here. So a6, and I feel like this is the right plan. Okay, so bishop d2 now again developing, and with a threat of a discovery. So since there's a discovery and the bishop has moved to a square which kind of blocks the queen in a way, I feel okay, it's not that bad if I just move back and waste the tempo. So that's why I play here. I play queen back to d8. And okay, sure enough, the bishop on d2 is kind of misplaced, so it only makes sense to move it again. I wouldn't go f4 though. I would have went bishop g5 here just to try and provoke h6 and stuff like this. But bishop f4 is by no means a bad move. So bishop f4 by her. And since she's not making any threats, that leaves me open to play my agenda. And notice that since the knight's back on f3, I can play b5 immediately. And this is like those subtle distinctions here. Because if I were to play b5 with the knight on d4, he would have knight takes c6 and I'd hang a piece. So, yeah, so now you have two options here basically. You need to move the bishop, of course. And what she plays here is bishop b3, which, okay, it has some attacking ideas and attacking value here. In my mind, it would have been better to continue with bishop f1. Now, bishop f1, guys, is a really cool maneuver you can implement in your games once you've played your rook out, of course. So if your rook is on f1, of course, you can't play this, but if you've moved your rook out and it's on the open file, sorry, it's on the center file, and you have a move where you have to move your bishop back, bishop f1 is really interesting because the bishop serves a very good defensive purpose here and still has some ideas of aiming at these two pawns, so it's not really that easy for black to push these pawns much further, and if they do, they may become easy targets. So this is a very interesting move to play here, and the game would have followed that with like bishop e7, queen d2, rook c8, just normal development moves, and this would be a very good position for both sides, I feel. She does go bishop b3, which again is not a bad move. By no means whatsoever. And so what happens is we basically continue developing like I showed in the other line. So bishop e7, queen d2 by her, and I think in my mind I was calculating this variation where instead of queen d2, what if she plays a4, really aggressively striking at my queen side, and this would be of course the best move. And if I were to play b4, then it does get really easy to target this pawn here. And if I do push a5 at some point, maybe b5 gets a bit weak, and you can stick a knight or a bishop there and make some really good play on the queen side. So I was imagining something like b4, knight d5, rook c8, knight takes, bishop h6. Okay, we go back and you've traded off your bishop, which you'd love to trade, which is the dark square bishop as white. And black would love to have this dark square bishop, but it's traded off, so it gets into a very even game here. So yeah, we'd have to see who was better here. I'm not really sure, but this was the line I was considering and calculating. I think it's still very playable for black here. So yeah, instead of a4, we have queen d2. Queen d2 fails to address one thing, which is why I was calculating a4. I was calculating a4 because I knew she had to play a move which would allow her bishop to retreat. And since she doesn't give her bishop a retreating square, the bishop she wanted to save and have an attacking purpose now have no purpose after knight a4. Because where does the bishop go? You can't really move it out. There are no squares you can move the bishop where it can't be captured by a knight or a pawn. So this is the reason I play this move. And since she's losing it, maybe she might as well trade off her dark square bishop for mine. Okay, I'll take a takes, rook c8 developing. I'm never going to take on h6, by the way. So guys, this is also a very important pattern for you guys to remember. You cannot take this bishop. If you do this, it's really bad for you because it really becomes easy for you to be attacked after, let's say, queen takes with the idea of knight into g5, setting up mating nets already, and this is very dangerous. If this knight ever gets misplaced in these patterns, then you are just dead. You can sack a rook for this knight, you can sack a bishop for this knight, trade a bishop for this knight, you can just pawn storm and try and get this knight out of the position, because if you manage to get the knight out, it is checkmate. So very dangerous play. And if you guys know me, I'm all about not giving my opponents counterplay, so that's why I don't take it. I just go rook c8 and develop. So rook c8, trade, that's fine, don't really care. e5, you're going to break in the center, don't really care because I think it's premature. I really think this move is premature. So this is what I would say is an imprecision. But I was really nervous at this point. I was really nervous because it looks menacing, basically. And basically I had two options. Two options. So I could play either my knight to e8 or I could take. What would you guys do? Let me know, please. What would you guys do in this position? Would you guys play knight e8 or would you take on e5? Because think about this from my perspective. I just played the game against the 1400 and my goal here is to reach National Master. And of course, to reach National Master, you need a certain rating, you know. You need to get up there, basically. And if I'm playing 1400s and drawing them, I'm not going to get there anytime soon. So in my mind, going into an equal endgame here was not ideal. So that's why d takes c5 was so scary for me, because it's trading queens, and who's going to be better? Is it going to be easy to play this out? I mean, okay, I do have a bishop and he doesn't, but still, it could lead to a draw, and that's really scary for me. So if I were to play knight e8, which is the inferior move, I'm going to tell you guys that already, then we'd have something like, what I was calculating was rook a d1, bishop takes, and this would be a line. Or instead of rook a d1, playing knight d4, saving the knight, and after takes, rook takes, knight f6, moving back. This would be an okay position. It's not queen trading, so this would be very good for both sides, I guess. I've got queen b6 ideas coming in, followed by rook fd8. Can I? Because my e-pawn is hanging, so... Okay, it's interesting, it's complicated, it's fun. I mean, I guess this could be played and we'd see who wins. So, anyways, knight e8 is a possibility, but the better move here is d takes e5. So this is what I play, it's on the board, d takes e5. You really should queen trade here, as white, you really should. This is a huge mistake. Even though it doesn't look like it, it's a huge mistake. So why is this a mistake? Because it allows me to play a very sneaky move here, very cheeky move. See if you guys can find it. This is black to play and add pressure to the board for the rest of the game. If you guys found it, congratulations. The move is b4. b4. And b4 just attacks everything. It attacks this, and you're going to have to move the knight somewhere. Probably going to be to a terrible square. And if you queen trade, then the c2 pawn is hanging, so watch out for that. Let's think of alternatives though. If queen c7, sure, you develop the queen and you can play your other rook, but what happens after this move? And you're now having to push the pawn. So push. It looks like you're creating more weaknesses unnecessarily, so this would be inferior in my mind, and it actually turned out to be inferior. So, but queen c7 was my original consideration. When I was at this point, I only saw queen c7, so I was really lucky to find this b4 move afterwards, and b4 is such a good move here. After queen takes, rook f takes, knight a4, which is a blunder, believe it or not, mainly because I'm able to take here and get into this really good position here. I'm going to have double rooks on the 7th, so that's amazing. So knight a4 is a blunder, mainly because I'm able to capture this pawn and double his pawns, and he's not really got that much counterplay. Whereas a way better move would be knight a2, which I saw for her. And the idea of knight a2 is, okay, you can't stop me from taking on f3, but at least you can minimize the damage after rook takes and knight takes b4, because you're now threatening to take on a6. Sure, you've got doubled pawns, but still you have some drawing chances. Rook takes. Now you don't have doubled pawns. And we get into something like this. This is more or less what I saw in the game. So, okay. Knight a4 blunder, because again, take, and I get doubled up, which is amazing. Okay, you can take my pawn. Don't really care about that because I'm just too quick at the attack. This move comes in. I'm really threatening your king now in scary ways. I'm going to do bad things to your king, so watch out for that. Sure, take my pawn. I don't care because there's check. King f1. You can't... Wait, I guess you can go to h1, but that's not really that good. Check. And here I should have just played rook takes b2. This would just be a way better move and make more sense. I'm threatening mate, and I've got pressure on the pawns. Everything looks fine, although I go for a different route. I play after king e1, knight h5, with the idea of playing knight g3 and mate. So this is also a possibility. Rook takes 7, knight g3, threatening mate in 1, king d1, rook takes b2, and after rook e3, stopping any mating ideas, I go for this knight f5, trying to reroute my knight into a better square in order to allow some checkmates. Maybe I'm planning to go to d4, taking on b3, and then mating somehow. And after this move, your rook is hit, so rook e4. And this, guys, is the beauty of these positions. It's when you have such a good position and they play a move which seems to stop your ideas. Sometimes the best thing to do in these positions is kind of like reverse engineering. And if you guys want brilliant moves in your games, this is exactly the process you need to go through. So basically the thing here is that your rook is on e4 and stopping my knight from going to d4 or to e3 for that matter. But it's actually not. Because what would happen if you take? What would happen if you take after knight d4, which is what I played, is you get mated because of rook takes knight and then just mate on the back rank. So you can't take this, which means you have to play something else. King c1 is what she played, and after knight takes, this is a mating net, and she resigned. So this was a really fun game, and I really enjoyed this one. I think this was a really good game of mine. I'm really proud of this one as well. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope you guys learned something, and let me know in the comments. And I'll see you guys for round 4. We are now 2.5 out of 3. So see you guys there. Bye.